What did I just watch? Because that was pretty weird, but in a good way. Because the movie was fun, and most people would say that they liked it, but they didn't love it. And I'm kind of sort of inclined to agree. I would have loved if they released it at home, because honestly, my theater wouldn't shut the up. And with that being said, there are spoilers up ahead, so this is your only warning. But first, a quick breakdown of the movie and the obvious plot holes. Buddy is a brutal comedy horror parody of the show Barney and Friends. I think they got the idea from this one skit that someone made years ago of this dude dubbing over Barney, talking to this little kid from the perspective of an OG chill black dude who speaks pretty casually but throws in a lot of cuss words, and it's really funny. But it's also straight up the first scene in the movie Buddy, so it's pretty much confirmed that this is where they got the idea from. Also, the theme song in the movie that the kids sing when they start their show is a rework of the theme song from DuckTales. I noticed it has the same bass line, same melody. Not pointing that out as a negative, it's just something I noticed. So the movie follows these children who were secretly taken from their real lives, transported into the world of fictional kids in a show called It's Buddy. And their memories are erased, and every day they have to live out the lives of these kids and sing along in this kid show. And then at the end of the episode, things get reset, and they do this little shot of the sky and then a quick cut. I couldn't tell what was in the quick cut, but it was something. I think that's the time between each episode when it stops and then the next episode starts. They don't just run back to back, so you can assume that there's something more sinister where they're put in cages or something like that before they have to go to the next episode. But Buddy the Unicorn eventually snaps after the children repeatedly express that they hate him. His wounded ego turns into a violent rampage, and then he starts murdering the children one by one until they all catch on and eventually escape into the woods outside of the fence, where Buddy doesn't want them to go because he tells them there's monsters out there. And we find out eventually that Buddy's the only real monster, and that everything that lives beyond the fence, like the plants, the trees, a few bikes, an old man, and a puppeteer, are all seemingly afraid of Buddy, to which Buddy catches them and they have to reset the show. That's generally the main plot and premise of the movie, but there are tons of plot holes, which they mention when Grace, a woman whose daughter who goes missing, she's the mother of Freddy, the girl who really catches on in the beginning that Buddy's up to something sinister, but Grace, her two other kids, and her husband don't seem to remember anything until Grace starts to feel off. While arguing with her husband, she mentions the show took their third child. The dad straight up gaslights her and even goes on to say the main plot hole in the movie. He specifically mentions, so you're telling me this guy Buddy, who's in a TV show, takes a person from the real world, erases their memory of them in the real world from their family, their school, their friends, and even the government, and making light of this and acknowledging it kind of makes it better because they're acknowledging the fact that there's obviously a massive plot hole in this movie. And then they tried to visually show us this when they showed us this one scene of Grace where she's getting taken to the dimension where Buddy lives, and she's halfway in the TV and her husband doesn't even notice her in front of him or hear her calling out to him, even though she's yelling at the top of her lungs. And they did that, I think, visually to try to help answer some questions that the audience might have. Which brings us to the ending explained. The most important part of the ending is what Freddy discovers after escaping the TV world. So she reaches what looks like this school or television station filled with screens showing other children getting their brains wiped. And there are these depictions on the wall with implications that Buddy isn't necessarily the only creature doing this, but there's a twist to it. There appears to be multiple TV world personalities and creatures kidnapping children, erasing their memories, turning them into part of their shows. This is so that they could just lure in more children when they need them. The movie never explains who created the system, though I did notice some German scientists on the wall. Could this have been a failed German experiment gone wrong, left to its own devices, or Buddy may have just been part of something bigger, and we might find this all out in a sequel if that ever happens. Since we don't see much more than Buddy's world, though we do see 3 unicorns, one of which is Buddy on the wall in a painting, and we can assume that Buddy became the most evil of the 3 and took over the show. Because the whole underlying theme is power and entitlement, manipulation, and we also did see when they were escaping from Buddy's world that there was some kind of creature, could have been a unicorn, that was trapped in what looked like some kind of maintenance closet. Since when we saw this character in the movie, we hadn't seen the painting on the wall yet, so I didn't look too deep into it. Or like I said earlier, there's potential for multiple creatures kidnapping children. We really won't know unless there's a sequel, which is absolutely possible available, but nothing's been greenlit yet. Ultimately, the movie was pretty fun. Again, I don't think this needed to be released in theaters, and the underlying theme of power, entitlement, manipulation, and people who believe they're entitled to whatever they want, they should get it. Buddy, like Buddy, who's used to being adored, the moment that he isn't, he becomes violent. I literally know people like this in real life. The movie uses this ridiculous premise to explore how anger and entitlement can escalate into a horrifying behavior. And it can be on a small level too in the real world. It doesn't have to be a bloody nightmare like this movie. This is obviously an extreme fictionalization, and the ending was intentionally unresolved. Though Freddy escapes, she hasn't really won. She doesn't know why she was taken, who took the children, or how many other buddies there are out there, but Buddy does basically die in a hilarious way. But the good news is Freddy escapes, but the final scene does reveal that Buddy could have been just one piece of a much larger, much darker system. We'll have to wait to the sequel. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.